Politics is Swapna Saraswata, a novel dealing with 9 generations of Saraswats who migrated from Portuguese-occupied Goa to the southern part of Karnataka during the 16th century that he is best known for. This novel has taken over 15 years to write, written originally in Kannada, and has been well acclaimed. He has won several other awards and also worked in the field of cinema as a script and dialogue writer for several highly acclaimed films. Dr. Kiran Murukule is a multilingual scholar, writer, critic, translator who works in English, Konkani, Hindi and Marathi to be a polyglot. She has published Mapping the Mosaic of Culture, Essays in Language and Literature, Shaloi Vaibhav, The Man and His Works, Musings in the Meadows, Akshar Sarita, Pani Ke Lakire, that's poetry, Devotee of the Desirable, translation from Konkani, Sahitya Niyar, Antarangani, Kal Bairupa. It's a book of literary criticism. Please forgive my pronunciation if it goes wrong. She has been awarded several awards in the late Sri Gulu Amonkar Triennial Award and Goa Konkani Kalmi's Sarvotkrishta Konkani Granth Puraskar. Speaking and discussing and going deep into Goa's first diaspora, I present Dr. Gopal Krishna and Kiran Murukule.
Another round of discussion after a very revitalizing discussion about Yamuna. This session is going to take us into apparently the holy past of Goa. The session, as you can see, has been called the first Goan diaspora. I would call it perhaps the first known or identified diaspora. Significance of this discussion to follow is certainly because of the writer who took keen interest in an issue that has always been like a splinter at the heart of a Konkani individual. Whether that Konkani individual lives in Goa or is relocated elsewhere, the kind of compulsive migration or the self-exile into which people had to go has remained with them, and the Goan folklore, the Konkani folklore in Goa as well as elsewhere is replete with this. I believe the folklore is the barometer of a community's pressure. That an individual should spend about 20 years of his life doing research on a work that he writes after he retires from service, when he has had other works published, and he looked through not less than 4,000 sources for research. What does that mean to us? Before I ask any question, I would like to make this one last comment. I think this discussion underscores the mystique of Indian writing and Indian ethos, because the novel that we are discussing deals with a very minuscule society or community which has been also split asunder because of migration that is forced on them by circumstances. But that is not enough. The novel is not written in the language of that small group which is Konkani. It is written by a Konkani speaker whose forefathers, ancestors went through that traumatic experience, but he writes it in Kannada. And he puts it in cold storage for not less than 5 years, thinking that who would be interested in this tale. And then when it comes out in Kannada, it goes into another edition within 3 months. And you will see that it has also backed for itself, not just the Karnataka Sahitya Academy and the Central to mention but a few, which means that in some way this novel has created a dent in the world of it. I will first ask, the obvious question is, what drove you to this after so many years, and why the title Swapna Saraswati? Because it was a nightmare to go to see.
Thank you very much. Thanks in the beginning to the organizers of this seminar. And thanks for the interest that has been evoked from my novel, Swapna Saraswati. Yeah, why I wrote it? I was working in a place where there was a displacement of people due to the building of a dam in a small village. Everyone who were displaced from their original homeland came to me telling their problems and telling their ideas. And I was to write about them, that they have been shifted and these are the activities. Of course, they got their compensation from the government. But I was thinking about writing them because I'm basically a short story writer and thought that there might be some stories about them. But due to circumstances, I could not write that short story. And over a period, I was thinking, why not about ourselves? Why not we people who have migrated about 400 years back? And then I took up this research. I had to travel from Ratnagiri to Chertalai, south of Kochi, for about 60 times in search of the material. At one point of time, I came to know that there were about 22,000 families fled from this place. Just before that, a couple of years ago, there was a cholera that spread in this part of the land, or something like Ordesi, something. And at that time, around 3,000 families died. And in 1560, about 22,000 families fled from this place. And there are records till now, even now, in Lisbon library, which was either to not exposed to the public. Now they have opened it to the public. There was a condition, which made me interested. One of them is my ancestors. So I thought that I would write about them, and maybe when they say that there are 22,000, there may be 22,000 stories, how they, and at one point of time, what happened was they were asked to leave their place overnight. Tomorrow morning you should not be here. That was the dictum that has been forced on them. Well, just before that, I'd like to connect to another incident. I have noticed here, even including in this conference, in this festival, that most of the people, when they talk about Goa or history, they talk only about the 500 years old history. But there was a strong community and a strong society was living here, vibrant, and with a lot of so many communities of hierarchical stratas living harmoniously. Were there not conversion forced on their life? Before the advent of Portuguese coming to Goa, Muslim rulers used to come here. Bijapur, Adisham were attacking Goa and taking over Goa. Wise or twice it happened. And even during their regime, there were conversions. In fact, there is a story where a Brahmin was stuffed beef in his mouth and the entire family committed suicide. That's an incident has been recorded by these stories. But still, the community was well knitted. They were living very harmoniously, and if the foreign people used to come to Goa, it is because they were living prosperous enough. They lived prosperously on trade and agriculture. At that time, because there was conversion by the Muslims, the Hindus of this land invited Portuguese. Now, there are records. Invited Portuguese to come and have a war here. And it so happened that though Hindus came here, Hindus invited Portuguese to come here, and though there were armies of Hindus like Kudumbi youths, Brahmin youths, and other caste youths joined the army to face the Muslims, Portuguese came and took over from the Hindus. Actually, the Hindus knelt before the Commander General of the Portuguese and handed over the keys of this Goa city to him. There was a photograph also in one of the I don't know whether it was photographed or it was painted in a picture. So with that, they invited and they became the slaves. As you know, Portuguese came here with one balance in one hand and the cross on the other hand. So there was pressure to pick up all to convert the people into their religion. The people were not able to stand there, and the dictum of the ruler was leave this place or get converted. And then this 22,000 families spread within a span of 2 years. It's I think 1560 to 1562. And then of course there were some people who remained here. There were some people who went to the north of Goa, some people to the east of Goa, and some people to the west of down south. That was the diaspora that happened. That is what I touched upon. And my interest was not merely the dispersion from this place. What happened if they were to fly from this place overnight? The prosperous people who lived harmoniously in this society had to leave this place overnight. What could they have taken with them? And how could they travel to the south? Why did they travel south? And on the way, what happened? Because there was nothing in their hand. There were women, there were children, there were old people. And what happened? How they? So today, if you look at those sites, south of Goa, up to Cochin, almost every family is not only the Brahmins I am speaking to. There were Portuguese again joined. They are prosperous enough. So from nothing, how could they turn to this prosperous level? Was a very interesting thing for me. And therefore I made that study of all this.
About the tangent, what we
so to Saraswati. It is not dreams of Saraswati, no. Actually, many people ask me whether it is the dreams of Saraswati. No. Whether it is imaginary Saraswatis, to certain extent, yes, because I have not seen them. I had only heard of them over a period, probably after about 40 generations, if not more than that. Because at that time, the children used to get married at the age of say 12 or 13, and by 18 the first grandson would have this thing. By the time this old man happens to be about 50, 60, he would have got a great grandson also. That was the case. So I had not seen them after 40 generations. Then Saraswat, whether they were really living, whether I have taken the actual names from the history straight, no. It was, I call this as the work of fiction. It was peppered by the historic events. So to say, it was peppered by many other things that we have in our literary works. Like I have taken legends, I have taken folklore, I have taken surrealism. That anything, even I have taken even the grammar books that when I read. I have extracted one exact grammar, one sale read which happened about 300 years back. It was submitted to the government in the free India, India ruled by the British. That time, some read that. I have taken that. So then I thought that when my characters in the novel are not real, it's only imaginary, I thought that I will name it as Swapna Saraswati.
I asked this question about the title because when you say Swapna Saraswati, to any person who's steeped in Indian literature, the first thought that comes to mind is Bhasa's Swapna Vasavada. So I have always been thinking is that Swapna Vasavada has a dream as a particular literary and narrative device which is very significant. It is supposed to be one of its earliest uses, which is now being used in films, etc. So I thought it was that kind of a connect. But what is interesting is, in this discussion, the author has placed his finger on the society's tender spot. That the society gets conquered when it does not have the inner resilience to withstand an aggressor. You can also see that it was a society possibly, I only say possibly because we have no evidence, that it felt persecuted by one set of alien rulers and it wanted a change. In fact, there was, in our folklore also, there is a saying to support this, that there was handing over of the authority even to the Muslim rulers. I remember a line which says, Attar attar jhad, kattar kattar paan, attar attar jhad, kattar kattar paan, ayo Musalman, takapuri dilita. That is, it is like you are handing over. So was there this kind of a certain thing that evolved? I can't say it's a temperament of people. No people have such a temperament. What made them like that? And then you can see that they wanted to switch from one to the other, and we have come to this situation. I have one question to ask of it because it's been a part of the diaspora. And the ancient diaspora have been those that have moved out because of religious persecution. The earliest being the Jews. But today, we do not think of the diaspora essentially as people who are driven into a kind of faraway lands. They are compelled, even those who need to go by choice and make a home away from home, they do form the part of the diaspora. Now, you have been away at least for, say, a few generations. What do you think must have been the challenges and the traumas of this society that migrated, and how you have fictionalized it? How have you underscored that aspect, if you have?
Yeah, first, trauma and this thing was overcome by the fact that they loved their language very much. Even after 400 years, they did not forget the language that they have got now. They are still talking the same. Even whenever there are two people who have gone from this land meet, even today they speak only in that language. That has bound them very strongly. Second thing is, even their folklore. There's a wonderful poem that I would like to tell you, which I have used in my novel. That when they have migrated to some other place, they have tried to become one with the nature, one with the animals, one with the birds, and everything, even with the gods. They have taken the gods of that side, as their own. For example, Tirupati Venkatramana is one of their very favorite god. And although there is a Kuladevata family deity on the other side. In one of the folk songs, they are telling that, crow uncle, whether you have gone to Goa. Yeah. Kakmamma, goyang delu. Means, have you seen the husband of my child? It's a glory lullaby. Have you seen the husband of my child? The Bamana Yatamala, as he told that he will come back here. Even today when I hear that song, it's simply, fascinating. That folklore again made us connected to Goa. We have gone there, and this was under the rule of Portuguese for about 400 years. We were unable to enter it. Although, a common man would not have entered Goa so easily, though there were some visa taking and other things, they used to come. But there was an evening to come to Goa in each house. That is because of the English language. And God, of course, they have taken the God, that is what the legendary stories tell. But I would say that he is mainly the Saraswat Brahmins. I call them Saraswats because there are so many varieties of Saraswats. There are Saraswat people, Gaud Saraswats, Rajapuri Saraswat, and so many other Saraswats. I put them in one bag. I call them Saraswats. In each house, there was a temple. I don't know whether it is still prevailing in Goa today, but most of the major big houses had their own temples in their house. And a priest was appointed in that house, for full time as we speak. And they had that casket of the gods with them, and that they were taken, not the idols, heavy idols of bronze or no, they had not taken, they were unable to take. If there's only one incident, one thing I get is that there is one temple in Shivali where there is an idol that was transported from Goa to that place. There is no other, idol incident is there. So with that, what I felt was that the language has been taken. Then, in Konkani, there is no plural. Everyone used to tell it's in singular only. Even if his father or the grandfather, we used to call them tu, not to be. That is like, in English also that's the thing. In English it is called as you. So therefore, they used to call the man as mama and the woman as my whoever we call. I don't know whether it still prevails in Goa. But in the land where I am there, we used to call every other man, be it he is elder or younger, we used to call him mom. And popularly known as Pai Mom. Or if we ask Kiranji as a Maye, we will call her. Even if she is younger. So, like uncle and aunt, we call. So that also. So that made us together. Though we were insignificant and the poverty, we were all had nothing in our pocket. It was almost begging with each other. And what happened? They were very good at talking, very good on their tongue. So that way, they were able to get into the society where they are born, and they could make their own empire, as we call it today. That was another thing. The strength of the chunk was so big, you know. There was another thing also. Like the Mudta of the language. This language was unheard by the other South Indian people. They could not decipher it, what it is when we talk. In Karnataka or in Kerala, if somebody talks in Konkani, in the speed in which they are usually, conversant, the other people never understood it. So there was an identity of the language also in them. So with that, they could manage to have the business very easily. They could have built up their business. And apart from that language, there's a Gupta language also in this thing. So with that, they could maneuver the business tycoons of Arabia, or the Musalman, the Zamaris of the Calicut, and the Nawaids of Patkal, and have a flourishing trade and good union.
This brings us to some very interesting sociological observations. The discussion seems to, at the beginning, be preoccupied with the religious persecution and its aftermath. But if you look below the surface, what you notice is there has been a tremendous clinging on to the language, because even when the gods, in quotes, deserted man, what stayed with them was that was the only togetherness that they could feel in an alien language. Because I guess they might have been like flotsam and jetsam in a sea. They would have been flung away to the language. But more importantly, I think it is also the ability of using the language. What is underscored is the capacity of the Konkani language, and not the speaker, the Konkani language for articulation. In today's world, negotiation for survival, exploring intellectual and other avenues, and discussions across tables become very important. So you will see this minuscule community, which might not have comprised of all Saraswat. It must have been a kind of a peace deal that went away. But they must have had a very strong kind of ability for articulation, and that says something for the language. Because over the last 2 days, once or twice, I have even heard statements like, there is not adequate vocabulary in the language. I think there is more than enough vocabulary in the language. And it is, you will say, but when I speak the court of the Zamuri, or when I speak at the Princess of Patkal, I am not speaking in Konkani, very much so. But what feeds my discourse in another language is the articulation that my language and the intellectual ideas that my language has facilitated. So you can see how the significance of holding on to one's first speech, the native speech, comes through. But I have one interesting question for you. This is about a faraway, small tribe. We call it community for the sake of convenience. And the book became a roving success in a completely different group of place where there is a Dravidian family. Okay. What drove them to the tribulations of this community? How did they identify with it? Certainly they will not identify with the religious persecution phase. What was it that appealed to you think? Was it the fiction that you created, your narrative skill, or was it some of the very contemporary techniques that you have used? I am told even the use of magic realism has been undertaken by you. But what appealed to your Kannada reader?
Look here, this type of experience is unique to the Saraswatis in the South India. There is no other community which has undergone this type of exodus or the migration in South India at least. For that, the exodus, the history of exodus also is to be taken. This exodus particularly, you see now we have got Jews, we have got Parsis, we have got Kashmiri Pandits. There are so many communities. But religious exodus was, and one of its only kind in South India, was happened only to the Goan people who were migration. There are three types of migration what I usually understand. One is an optional migration that I want. Second is by the nature, there may be an earthquake, there may be a natural calamity, floods or anything. Then there may be an exodus. Then the third one is political migration. Means the king changes. There are so many small places in Karnataka itself where the kings often have changed. Like, for example, Kodavas. But a large scale exodus took place only to Saraswats. I would say, when I say Saraswats goals, the pre-converted goals. Now there was another exodus from this place after about 200 years again, where lots of Catholics migrated from this place, about 200 years back. That also I have recorded in my novel. But till now there is no other story. So that was beautiful. When I presented this novel to my Kannada readers, I was myself afraid that they may not accept it. That is why I kept my manuscript for almost 5 years in the login. I was not, eager to present it to anyone because it was beautiful work, about 500 pages, and the investment in the books is very high. And no publisher would have come if I had given it. Because the investment was very large and the recovery was taking about 10 to 15 years to recover. So I was afraid. But just before that, since I had published one of the short story collection, which immediately was accepted by the Kannada people, my publisher came forward and took a risk actually. At the end of it, I was thinking about it, and I had to justify my publishing. I told him that, look here, if we can enjoy a Latin American novel or a Chinese novel or a Russian novel, Tolstoy, where we cannot even pronounce the names of the protagonists there, even today, in a correct way, then why not? Who have got the names, I have used some of the very rare names in my novel, like, Kakapaya, for example. Kakapaya was almost Kama. Those were the names that had happened in my novel. So, but why not add the names of the places like Puttali or Matagrama or Rotli, for example. I tried to justify that this would be accepted anyway, and he took a big risk in publishing it. How it was accepted with Kannada people? One is probably the narration. I come from using almost minimal words to express the maximum because of the illusion I got from the modern writers like Murthy or Adiga or people like that. And the picturesqueness that I have used, everything was very beautiful. Even their walk or their travel by the cars from Verne place here to the south, through Mangali, to Kalgar, to Kulabu, Udupi, like that, going on the way. It was very, very picturesque. So that might have come in, I think. And the stories had the lyrical quality in that. It was not my lyricality there. And I, of course, tried that the lyrical quality has to be there because when I wrote it when I revised the draft for the 6th time, I read it myself in a louder tone because I wanted to have it a sort of Quran revision. That type of tone has to come. So several experiments I did before I went to the publication. And the literality was there. Then the technique of the story. The best technique that we have is Vyasa, who it is great technique Mahabharata, where the grandfather is telling the story to his grandson about his grandfather. There are already 6 generations there. That technique I used. I started, the grandfather is telling the story of his grandfather. It starts it commences in the place where I was to start my protagonist's life, in a place called Kumbulan. And in the first page itself, he jumps to Verde. From there, it starts. Then, of course, surrealism, managerialism, all those things. And the poetry. So, all those techniques I used. That might have been the case for accepting this thing.
I'd like to make an observation that if the book had been available in Konkani, then perhaps people would have got a kind of a feel of the techniques that he has used, and perhaps it would have led to greater perception of what he says. Because the word of the author, after the book is published, the word of the author ceases to be. The book speaks for itself. And he had told that the book is in translation in English, in Malayalam, in Tamil, in Telugu, in Bengali, and it can be await its publication in Konkani. It's controlled trade in so as and when that comes. But my personal take on why that work must have been so popular with the Kannada readership is, I think simply because it tells the struggle of survival. The struggle of survival of the marginalized always has a universal appeal. And when it goes over generations of that outcome of the struggle, it becomes even more poignant. We look forward to having a discussion on the novel when it is available in Konkani. So before we wrap up, if there are any questions,
I thought there won't be time for question answer, but it's a big question. Whenever there is an exodus, it is never of one community. It's community in the sense of village or entire community, like marketplace in this 100 years of society. It is not one family that goes or one kin people. Besides that, other community, like barbers, like other the washermen and other community also goes. So how is that? I don't know whether it is, I'm sorry I have not read it, but how is that it is not mentioned?
Yeah, I have mentioned. There are about several, actually I told there were 22,000 and I had ample opportunity to explain all those things. And it is not one family that I have been concentrating. When they start from this place, it was 44 families they have started together at one night. And 4 other families come and join them on the way. So 48 families have started from this place. And apart from them, on the way, they used to meet, the Sonegas, the Cheptekars, so many other, and of course, the Kudumbis were the major part of the society. They had gone with them. So I have touched upon all those people. It is not a simple one family story at all. And actually, at the end of the one of the critics in Kannada told that when the main character is addressing the last person of the family, he is telling after every other sentence, he is telling the name of that person. Like, Ramchandra Pai, you hear this like that every time. And it sounds that it is not telling to Ramchandra Pai alone, it is telling to the entire community. It's a message that has been passed on to the entire community. That way it is constructed in that way. I like to, perfect. I'd like to read 1.5 pages. Take 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah. Before that, I'd like to read only 1.5 pages.
Reading about 2 paras.
Yeah. Only 2 paras. See, it was in the last day of Goa. Before the January, and there were some tragedies, some deaths and negatives. Before the wheels of the cart rolled off, Vittupai went to have a parting glimpse of the Nagdavetala. Nagdavetala is a surrealistic character. He took a grand view of Nagdavetala, who stood like a copper figure. Nagdavetala deduced resolutely, "Let the curse never diminish your zest for life, Vittupai. Don't forget that I have endowed the women of Saraswat families with the power of bearing 12 children. Move southward. Are you not a mass of 44 families altogether? Settle down in different places, almost one family at each place. Let your progeny flourish. Address every Saraswat Brahmin man of the 108 descents of 11 temples of Goa as Mama and every woman as Maya hereafter. Whenever one Saraswat meets another Saraswat, do not speak in a language other than Konkani. Don't forget Dada on the auspicious occasions of wedding and initiation ceremonies. Give him a prominent seat beside the priest. Instruct the next generation to prostrate before Dada during their visits to family deity in Goa in the future. Vittupai, born in Kaushavatra, the descent of goddess Mahalasa, the great grandson of Mal Sharma, grandson of Narsapaya and son of Malapaya, took a parting view of Nagdavetala at that defiling tournament. He saw the glistening figure stood upright at the backdrop of a tawny raging fire, with exclusive serene smile flashing on his crimson lips. Forget us not, Vittupai yelled out as the wheels of the cart hurtled. I will not, said Nagdavetala. Then turning back, blessed in high pitch with raised hands, but don't ever come in such a way. I will appear in times of crisis on my own.
I have just two questions but quick answers. Won't take me. One, you have traveled 60 times, you said, up and down. Have you come across the fact, some historians say, that after 22,000 families migrated, some families came back, Portuguese went to them and they were brought back because the economy had collapsed here. Have you come across any such thing? Number one. Yeah. Number two is a quick answer, where this is so much of research you have gone into. So don't you think that besides a fiction, which is a novel, it has a value of a great non-fiction research book?
Yeah, both I say there is a lot of matters for this thing. And in fact, now that the library in Lisbon is open, anybody can go there and find out any of the stories and try to seek out. Second thing is whether anybody has come back. They had, the trading relations with these people, but nobody came back. Even though I have not come across any incident that they have come back and settled here. Because once they have left this place, the Portuguese has taken over their all properties. In the matter of that